How soon after you closed did you let the GM go?
Maybe somewhere between days, I would say. There are a lot of folks that would think you're crazy for leaving tech to kind of do this. And they will be right. There were days where I was so sure, like you get off a call with the seller and you just feel so dumb. Like it was very, very easy to just call it quits. 6 months, 7 months, close to almost a year.
What allowed you to move so quickly after 6 to 7, close to a year of kind of spinning your wheels?
My advisors really helped me kind of hone down a buy box. I think 7 or 8 days, my advisor sent a deal to me.
Let's talk about how you've been able to grow the business. We haven't really touched on that, but that's something super impressive.
Gross margins were somewhere between 28 to 29. Now we are somewhere around 34, 35% in
Wow.
gross profit margins. For the most part, has replaced my salary and some more from my previous industry.
One thing we really haven't touched on is you've already been seeking out additional acquisition. You're only 8 months into this first deal, but you're already looking for more. Tell us about that.
We're under LOI, doing diligence.
Round two.
A large majority of this deal is a seller note. I think maybe 2/3 of it is a seller note. Once you taste that Kool-Aid, you just want to have more.
Hey everyone, it's Helen from SMB Deal Hunter. Today we have Kofi Acheampong with us. Kofi's a former software engineer who acquired a restoration business at the end of last year of 2024. This is a little different from most of the interviews I've done because Kofi's actually a member of SMB Deal Hunter Pro, which is our business by accelerator here at SMB Deal Hunter. And we've actually met in person. We just hung out at our happy hour in New York just a few weeks back. So Kofi, it's great to see you again. I'm really looking forward to diving into your story, catching up on how things have gone post-acquisition, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm a fan of the podcast and of course SMB Deal Hunter as well. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, Kofi, let's start with your background. What were you doing, this time last year? What kind of got you into buying a business and thinking about transitioning from being a software engineer working in tech to business ownership?
Yeah. Like you mentioned earlier, I spent most of my career being a software engineer. Uh, this time last year, well, I was mostly hunting for a business, but I wasn't doing it full time. I was working as a software engineer doing that as well. Uh, and yeah, as far as what kind of got me into it, I think an itch would be a bit of like an understatement, so I don't want to call it an itch, but I've always had this desire to be an entrepreneur. Matter of fact, maybe I think 3 years ago at this point, I had started a software company with two of my co-founders, and I can share more on that story later. But just my general burning desire to be an entrepreneur. I kind of through my previous experiences with entrepreneurship, I kind of figured, hey, just purchasing a business is a really viable path that works. And one curiosity led to the next, and I was having a hard time, discovered SMB Deal Hunter, and now I'm here.
I love it. Tell us about the software company you started. Were you was that like a side hustle? Were you working on it full time with your co-founders? Like you actually quit your job and tried to, really grow it, or what was that experience like?
Yeah. It was a full-time thing, a real thing. I did quit my job to do that. I was working for a large software company in Silicon Valley, and I I don't know, just being around really smart people, you get all sorts of inspiration, and uh, I'd always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur of sorts. So uh, I just kind of quit. One day I was like, oh, it wasn't quite literally one day. It was a few months leading up to the moment. I had started whilst I was working there, and at some point I was like, I'm just gonna go all in. So I did quit. Was doing it full time. The company itself was called Orbor. The startup was called Orbor. It was basically personalized AI conversations for your web visitors. It was for the B2B like businesses that sell to other businesses. They do all these marketing and inbound kind of work and get people on their website, and they need ways to convert them. And so we'll, it was a chat bot you put on your website, and it will be there to kind of answer their questions and essentially book a meeting for your sales team. It would integrate with your CRM and get your sales reps really prepped for the call and hopefully lead to a close of sorts. That's what Oba was, and we were doing pretty well for. I mean, we managed to sell, which was very exciting. Just going from
Wow.
zero to one. We built, launched. We did launch also on Product Hunt. I think we got number three product of the day. Uh,
Wow, really? I check
yeah,
every day. That's awesome.
yeah. And we got a couple of businesses interested. I was on LinkedIn, just kind of chasing like director of demand generations, organizations trying to have them buy. And we were part of this accelerator in San Francisco called Founders Universities by Jason Calacanis. He's a VC out in SF. And I think it was a really great learning experience, but ultimately I didn't think I wanted to raise money. I was not very convinced that I wanted to do that. And it also became pretty apparent that we're either going to raise or it was going to be hard to scale without raising. And so I was very adamant against it. My co-founders, not so much. They were open to the idea. They wanted us to do it. But, you know, quitting my job, not paying myself and not raising money and wife got pregnant and I didn't have health insurance and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I have to either raise money or I won't do this, and I'd rather not do it. I quit it and I got a job at a small startup based in New York. I was actually working remotely, but it's based in New York, and you know, went through the whole yada yada of it, got wife delivered, got a beautiful baby girl, and it's like I'm gonna do this entrepreneurship thing again. And this time I'm just not gonna start from scratch. So so that's ultimately what Orba was and how it also kind of led me into purchasing a business.
It's crazy because you started obviously a tech effectively a tech business, right? And now you're running a restoration company.
Yeah.
So tell us when you started searching for a business to buy, what was your buy box like? What was your investment thesis like? Were you definitely targeting more of like a traditional business? Did you have something in mind or were you kind of just open-minded there?
I think, in retrospect, it's easier to say I knew what it was and whatnot. It was really, I just dove in without knowing a whole lot. I mean, other than going on bizbuysell.com and just kind of seeing what was there and whether it made sense or not, I didn't know enough about, business, these kind of business models and what I just saw. This is the asking price, revenue, and cash flow. I was like, must be good, right? But I think that that in of itself also really made my search, I guess, inefficient in some way. And I just would go on, I'll see a business, and if those numbers looked interesting, I'll go on ChatGPT and draft an LOI and send it. And I also wasn't doing it full time. So it, I don't know if that would have necessarily made any difference in me kind of being able to apply myself a little bit more. But uh, the only thing I was sure about was one way or the other, I was going to do this. So I, 6 months, 7 months, close to almost a year. It wasn't quite a year, but it was close. Just kind of going in circles. I would go as far as sometimes meeting the seller or talking to them, but I never really got past the point of LOI. But I think it was really because I never really had a structure as far as buy box or what I'm looking for and whatnot. And I had I don't know how I think I may have come across your newsletter over a tweet or something, but I somehow and ended up getting those emails. I love them, by the way.
Thank
So I
you.
still I still check them out all the time. And in reading those emails, there are different dates. There are some lessons and nuggets in there, and I kind of started to realize, oh, there's really a framework to buying a business. You kind of have to figure out your buy box. You kind of have to figure out what you can afford. You kind of have to figure out where you're even going to get the money from. It's not a game. It's not biz buy sell. You don't go to biz buy sell to just click things, right? And in figuring those out, I started searching and looking for more content around this whole community, and I read a book called Buy Them Build. Uh,
Classic.
yeah, and from there I started to work out what a buy box looks like. But it also still felt like, because I wasn't doing it full time, it still felt like I was still missing something. And I figured, why, there's the whole community that helps you do this. Maybe it might be worth checking it out, join in. I already get a lot of value out of the newsletter, SMB Deal Hunters newsletter. So it can only be good from here. So in fully applying myself there, that was when my advisors really helped me kind of hone down uh, a buy box, and we defined it and ultimately ended up on the restoration business.
I think what I remember when you first joined is you were looking at a deal that you were submitting an LOI for like week one or something crazy like that. And I think you went under LOI
Yeah,
like within a month or something. Tell
yeah,
us about those early deals that you worked with us on. What I guess what allowed you to move so quickly after 6 to 7, close to a year of kind of spinning your wheels? What did that tell us about
yeah,
those early days?
yeah. What allowed me to move so it's so I think, again, whilst I was maybe having a tough time kind of getting some momentum going myself, I kind of knew I'm whatever it takes, I'm doing this, right? And I'm also generally not the kind to I tend to have a bias for action. I wouldn't sit down and overanalyze things. I quickly go, and when I fail, I just restart. So I working with my advisors, I think my advisor kind of knew pretty early on that this guy's just gonna keep going, and he for the most part was trying to kind of hold my hands, make sure we're not moving faster than we needed to. But you're right. Within my first, I think, 7 or 8 days, uh, my advisor had kind of sent a deal to me. It was kind of like, based on the conversation we had and whatnot, this might be something worth checking out. And I did get in touch with the broker and had a conversation with him and whatnot. And uh, it did kind of make it seem like there was a whole lot of competition. I wasn't necessarily sure that I was ready to get under LOI yet, but I yeah, I was like, it wouldn't hurt. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of knew what kind of offer I wanted to give to a certain degree based on conversations with the broker and the seller. So uh, I did submit the LOI, and maybe there was competition, maybe there wasn't, but I got in there. It was a waste management company, and it was based out in I believe Maryland or something, and I don't remember the exact numbers on it, but it definitely did fit the buy box. And uh, yeah, that was how I got under that one. I also got pretty fortunate in that deal, just to a certain degree falling on my lap.
Hey, quick break from the episode. If you're serious about buying a small business in the next 6 to 12 months, check out our business buying accelerator, S&B Deal Hunter Pro. We source deals both on and off market, catered exactly to your criteria. We give you one-on-one support with M&A advisors to help you review deals, structure offers, and negotiate with sellers. On top of that, we help you secure financing so you can buy a 7-figure business with as little as 50 to 100K down. In the past year alone, we've helped our members close over $60 million in deals. Some escaped their 9-to-5s and avoided layoffs, others added to their growing portfolios. If you want to be next, head to pro.smbdealhunter.xyz to apply. The link's also in the description below. All right, back to the episode.
And what happened then? Did you, I think you continued to look at deals. You obviously went under LOI a second time, and that was the deal you ended up closing on. But what caused the waste management deal to fall through in the end and cause you to choose the restoration deal?
Yeah. So the waste management deal, in learning about just buying a business in general, how the process, and there's a lot of things I learned from just the weekly calls, or I think it's more like 2 or 3 calls in a week. I forget what it was, and the office hours. You just kind of learn more about the process, not only from your side, but also if a broker is representing the seller, what a good broker looks like, what a bad broker looks like, whatnot. And I felt like, to put it lightly, that I was being pressured into things that I wasn't necessarily ready for. They were trying to have me sign a purchase and sales agreement before we even had due diligence done. Uh, Ultimately, I was like, yeah, I want to move fast, but I don't know if I want to move that fast. At the end of the day, I'm trying to. There's a lot of money that's going to be exchanged. I don't want to just do that without kind of due diligence and doing it at my own pace. So uh, the deal flow was still kind of going on, and there's another deal I looked at, the registration company, and a I quickly got on a call with a broker. I told the broker, "Hey, I'm going to submit an LOI." He's like, "Hold on, you may want to meet the seller first." So I was like, "Yeah, you're right." So we scheduled some time, and I met the seller. Uh, Great guy. We kind of bonded right away, and I think that really, really helped with ultimately getting the deal to a closing point. Just having a really good, authentic relationship with the seller, and we went ahead and submitted the LOI maybe a week after I met him, because I really had to take my time to really figure out what a deal structure would look like and whatnot. It wasn't as simple as what I had done before, just having ChatGPT basically do a deal structure for me. So I we yeah we put that together. He submitted it. Before I submitted the LOI, he had already kind of told me, if I put anything in front of him along the lines of anything within reasonable kind of thinking, he was gonna accept it because of the relationship we had built. So that was kind of how that one worked out.
That's amazing. And I think it's so underrated. People don't talk about how important the relationship between the buyer and seller is. And
Yeah.
I think that often gets lost in everything. Everyone's talking about LOIs and purchase agreements, but that's great
Yeah.
you were able to build that relationship.
Yeah, it was very, I will say that I think we even attended church together. Yeah, maybe once or twice. Had dinner. Had dinner with him and his wife. I met yeah, his kids. One of his daughters is a like veterinary, like vet. Uh, Met her, and it was all of that kind of just at that point was just making something reasonable, putting something reasonable in front of him.
That's smart, and that's I think that's the right way to do it. Tell us about the restoration company. Like, what did you like about the deal? Give us some idea of the size of the business, and just like what jumped out at you about it.
Yeah. In I really kind of, as far as the industry itself goes, I don't think I necessarily set out to get a project-based business. Uh, I didn't, I wasn't against it, but I had a preference for, I'll say, more of a recurring kind of revenue business. But I also came to quickly realize, the restoration industry in general is it's a pretty high margin industry, especially for mitigation, water mitigation, and it is more common than we like to think. And insurance is involved, and insurance can be pretty good about paying money as opposed to having to deal directly with homeowners. So I felt pretty good about, I guess, what could be the quality of revenue, and the market itself also played a huge factor in it. In the state of Virginia, especially this part of Virginia, this is like the business is based in Northwest Virginia. Shenandoah County, Winchester, all the way down to Lexington. Uh, the weather here is is up and down. If it rains hard. Uh, and it's a pretty good market for the industry. I think those things kind of stood out to me, and obviously in talking to the seller as well and getting an idea of the kind of business he had and his margins and whatnot. Uh, it was doing kind of like mid, I'll say seven figures in revenue. He had about maybe 20 people on a staff on his team, and was doing close to maybe like his SDE, like it was maybe around shy of 15-16%. So it it fit into my buy box. It did check a few boxes. Not everything, but what it didn't check, I came to get comfortable with it. So that was I'll say generally what the size of the business kind of looked like it and what piqued my interest about it.
And how did you structure the deal with the seller? I know you also, with this deal that was unique, is there was real estate involved. So tell us about that too, and tell us what kind of terms you negotiated with the seller that you guys agreed
Yeah,
upon.
yeah. I did do an equity injection. The bank, we, I got the bank involved. So I did a little less than maybe 5% in injection. The seller carried uh, about, I think, 17% or so in the deal as a note, and the bank took the rest. And the bank gave me I think a 5-year fixed rate, I think 7.9, and then a variable after. Because there was real estate involved, I got a slightly longer amortization period. The value of the real estate wasn't more than 50% of the deal, which I think by SBA guidelines, that will almost put you at 25 or more amortization. So I did not get up to 25, but I think we got like 16 years or so in amortization. So that was generally what the structure was. We kind of the thing about project-based businesses is you almost like inherit a WIP, what they call a WIP, work in progress, especially if you do a stock purchase, which I did. So it is basically his list of ongoing projects that at the day of closing, I mean, you're not going to say you bought the business and just shut those down, right? The customers are still looking forward to it being done and whatnot. So you kind of take over from there. And a part of this deal structure was not so much the deal structure, but more like an agreement within the deal was, how the jobs that I inherit that maybe he had started working on and paid costs towards, how he was going to recoup his cost and maybe the profits on it. So we had to kind of figure out a way that we were going to be like, for this job, this is how much you've paid on it. This is maybe how much you've collected or haven't collected yet. And when it's completed and more is collected, this is how it will be split. We basically split it on what we call percentage of completion. And the percentage of completion is essentially the cost towards the job, uh, relative to the budget that was set for the job. That's how we figure out the percentage. So that was something we worked into the deal as well. It wasn't my favorite part of the deal. It's hairy, it's kind of gross figuring out those numbers, but it was necessary at the time.
I feel like the work in progress is one of those contentious things between buyers and sellers. I'm
Oh,
glad
yeah.
you were able to sort of share how you were able to negotiate that. What were some of the other things that, once you got under LOI that sort of took longer or that held the deal up? I'm sure the work in progress was something that
Yeah.
maybe an extended negotiations. What else? How long did it take from LOI to close, and what were sort of some of the things that happened in between?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think maybe 4 months, closer to, I don't want to say 5 months, but maybe it was closer to that. Uh, I don't think it should have taken that long. A lot of it was more, it could have been avoided. Uh, it, there was a lot of difficulty kind of getting certain specific things. I think the bank had requested for, or like a year-to-date balance sheet, right? A year-to-date profit and loss and balance sheets and all these documents. And the seller historically hadn't really been very good about, he'll keep his books, or do his books, but he wouldn't do like what we call whip adjustments. Or at least in accounting terms, I think accountants like to call it the matching principle, where you basically kind of match your revenue when you recognized it versus your cost when it was incurred. And they would do it once a year, and you probably want to be in an industry like this. You probably want to be doing at least once a month, and that kind of made it take very, very long because they had to go back to his CPA and his accountant to kind of fix those things and getting the information they needed. It became pretty apparent that it needed to look exactly what maybe it should be for the bank to kind of be comfortable with it. So that did drag it for quite some time. Other than that, the actual diligence itself, and both legal and quality of earnings, it wasn't necessarily longer than it should have been. Obviously, the quality of earnings diligence went a little longer because he also had to deal with the same issues with the books. But my provider was very, very helpful. At some point, he got with the bank and made them more comfortable with some of the numbers as it worked out, which I don't know if that's normal at all, but I really, really appreciated him doing that. And the fact that there was also real estate involved also made it go maybe slightly longer than it would have otherwise. In purchasing the real estate, commercial real estate, they do, I guess, forget the technical word for it, but some sort of inspections, and it led to what they call a phase one. I think it's kind of like them checking some environmental conditions with the building. I'm not a real estate guy, I can't tell you. But it essentially required the seller to provide some records of the building, which he's had the building for more than 20 years. He could not figure out where those records are. So we had to perform the actual phase one test instead of using the previous records. And that also made it drag on for a little longer, getting like a provider to come out and do it and then take the time to provide the results and have it clear. But ultimately, another component of it that also, it didn't let it drag, but it played a part in the timeline was uh, this restoration company happens to be a franchise. So we had to get the franchisor to approve and accept me into the network. And there's a whole vetting process
What
to
was
that.
that? What was that like?
Oh man, I like to think I'm a darling in the franchise now. So it's fairly straightforward. But I got invited to the headquarters is based in Florida, is Jacksonville, Florida. The franchise is Paul Davis Restoration. Uh, and it was what they call Meet the Team. I think in the franchising world, we mostly call it Discovery Day. And it was a 2 day thing where the first day, you're just kind of learning all about the franchise. It's more like a sales pitch on their end to you, uh, and their processes, you know, the industry, all the jargons, and maybe even from a financial perspective, what could be in it for you. And then the second day is when it gets intense. The second day you meet all these executives at the franchise, and you do this interview. And I mean, the last time I was doing an interview like that, kind of getting nervous and kind of preparing for an interview like was interviewing these Silicon Valley companies, which if you know anything about those interviews, those companies can be very hard. Uh, but but yeah, luckily I it worked out. I got approved into the network, and uh, I yeah I they basically gave me the green light to go make the deal happen. Uh,
What were some of the questions they asked you on that second day? Do you
oh
remember
man,
anything? Like, did you feel stumped? Or because obviously the key difference here between that interview and probably your Silicon Valley interviews is you were a software engineer, right? So you had domain expertise, versus here, you're coming into a field you have no experience in. So I'm
yeah,
curious how that went, what questions they asked you.
yeah. Luckily, it wasn't specifically restoration and how it works restoration. Because I mean, I would have told them you're getting nothing out of me. I don't know anything about restoration. Uh, but they were really looking for uh, leadership, leadership skills. Maybe it helped that I had some entrepreneurship background up until that point. Teams you've led and how you've run your teams. And in my software engineering career, at some companies, I kind of had the privilege of kind of having a small team that I'll work with, or kind of leading teams. And my startup too, with my co-founders, and we had, two guys that we kind of were helping us with development documents. So I think those experiences really played into just leading a team, and kind of being able to speak to that, hiring, recruiting A players. What do you look for? I think it was mostly kind of along those lines. And Paul Davis also has what they call their core, like, mission and values, and they really wanted to also see how you resonate with those. On the first day where they kind of tell you about them, they spend a lot of time on that, and the second day is kind of like they try to get it out of you without telling you, but how you align with those. And there was a lot of time spent on kind of making sure there was a fit there too.
No, thanks for that insight.
Mhm.
That's super interesting. And what else were you focused on during this diligence phase? As you had the QB going on, as you were sort of putting that agreement together and negotiating, what else were you kind of diving into with the seller to better understand the business?
Yeah, I was very obviously it was my first time kind of doing something like this at this scale. So I was very much spending a lot of time on just what the operations could look like, a day to day, what it could look like, mostly from a financial perspective. I spent a lot of time on that, and just kind of figuring out, like, what is the payment cycle, for example. In this industry, it's pretty common that it's 30 days. And then I also came to learn the way you get paid in this industry is documentation, right? You can do all the work, but if you're not telling or proving to the insurance company what you did by way of taking photos or taking notes, or uh, you know, showing the right dimensions, is you're not getting paid. Quite simply, it's so funny. It's almost like the real skill is in how well you document things than anything else. It's so like they don't care that I dried a home in 3 days, which is the homeowner is back in their home. That is, you think that's the value I've provided, and I ought to be paid for that. It's more like how well did you document what you did, and that's what will determine how much you get paid. So it was a kind of learning those things, or it was kind of hard too because there's only so much you can learn from the outside. I've learned a whole lot more and continue to learn a whole lot more now that I've been in the business for, I don't know, what's it been, 8 months at this point. So it, I spent a lot of time on the financial operations of the company, and just uh, yeah, just how to get paid. Ironically, I spent a lot of time there, but I didn't spend as much time on working capital, which that's another story for another day.
No, I'm really curious. I think a lot of people, first time buyers, they always ask me, like, should I do a quality of earnings? Do I really need to spend the money? Should I really do it? Tell
Please do.
us tell us how that went for you. What was that process like? What did you learn from your quality of earnings report?
Yeah. We the quality of earnings, it, there were a number of things he dived into. Proof of cash, working capital analysis. I forget the other things. I remember the report in itself was a giant Excel sheet with about 9 or 10 tabs, and every section was a very detailed section of just things, all numbers with the company. Uh, the part that I think till this day, whenever I think about the quality of earnings due diligence, I keep going back to was the working capital. With with the size of the business, the revenue, and you almost want to, just as a rule of thumb, maybe have 10%, 5 to 10% of your revenue goal in AR at any given point. And the working capital that supports you getting to the point of that AR, the analysis he did for that too also suggested, you may want to have this amount of money in your bank account, liquid cash. It's not tied in vehicles or assets or anything like that, actual cash, or or even by way of line of credit. It doesn't have to be cash per se, but it has to be something you could have available in a day or two if needed. So I think I kind of underrated or underestimated how important that piece is, especially in the restoration industry. Uh, the restoration industry is water mitigation and whatnot, but part of it is also construction, building back. Sometimes you go into a building, you tear it down, dry it out, and you have to build it back. And at that point, you're just full blown doing construction, buying materials, getting subcontractors and whatnot. And if we know anything about the construction industry, is it just eats up a lot of cash. And if the successful construction companies are the ones that manage cash flow the best. It's not a demand problem. There's enough construction demand that everybody gets work, but um, managing cash flow and being aware of your working capital is, and I don't think I paid as much attention to it as I could have during the due diligence process. And uh, in purchasing the business or on the day of closing, kind of maybe 3, 4 weeks in it, I kind of realized, okay, this is some serious stuff. Every week we're paying large amounts of money to our subcontractors, but it's taking us about 30 days, sometimes longer, before we get paid. There's no money leaving, that money coming in. I don't want that. So so we had to really quickly try and adjust to that, which I think all of that could have really been avoided if I just really looked at the quality of earnings that was put in front of me and was like, you probably want to have this amount of money in your bank account, and just make sure I did, which going into it, I did not. I think I had maybe one third of that.
Wow. Let's dive into the transition then. That's a good segue. Tell us about those first 30 days. You brought up the working capital. How did you quickly sort of shift gears there? And then what else happened during those initial couple weeks? Because it was also
Yeah.
the holiday period. So just tell us about those early days.
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with the holiday period. We closed on December 23rd, and on the we very quickly kind of met the team and kind of spoke to them and introduced myself. The seller was very helpful in making that transition, and um, I kind of forget it. Wouldn't it be cool if on the 24th, which was Christmas Eve, it's the registration company, I think because we also provide what we call emergency services, is a 24/7 industry. So folks under normal circumstances would come into the office on the 24th. But after my kind of introduction speech, I was like, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, maybe we can all take the day off and we'll touch base on that. I think well the 26th after Christmas was also off. So that was kind of a nice way to kind of come in as the new owner. But the real work started when the new year started, and the transition it went pretty smooth, I'll say. Because I did a stock purchase, I didn't catch myself doing a whole lot of calling these accounts and having to switch them over. It was just like for those that I could access online, I'll go online and change the name to my name, and that was pretty much it. So it wasn't too bad. I think diving into the operations and kind of seeing how things run also went fairly well. The general manager was very available and helpful in kind of showing me the ropes and what to pay attention to and all that kind of stuff. But the working capital kind of thing became pretty apparent, and the way we really kind of dialed in on that was we just had to really scale our collections effort overnight. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just brute force.
yeah, yeah, we had, luckily I had kind of worked out a deal. Part of the deal, there was some AR that was left in the deal, uh, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was really just AR. We had to go collect it. So anything past 30 days, I had AR specialists basically like we're gonna follow up with them every 48 hours until we get it and document everything, document every conversation, whether you're calling the homeowner or the insurance company and this isn't gonna be a one-person effort, it's a whole company effort. So we try to have a culture where everybody collects, everybody collects what is owed to us. So um, I we just kind of understood, and it worked out pretty well. Obviously, uh, folks were generally excited about the new ownership. Didn't have as much of a hard time kind of getting buy-in from folks. That made it fairly easy to just, I guess, within the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks, just being like, hey, we're all going on a collection effort, right? Because if they were like, who's this new guy? That would have made it hard. I would have had to get some external injection or something like that, but it didn't get that. It didn't get to that point. But
How often were they calling before? You put in like the every 48 hours, but what was that SOP like before, if there was any?
I I can't say that there was really a measure or some process to it. I still have that document that I wrote, the SOP document I wrote about what our collections was going to look like, and have because of how new I was too, I was like, I'll need somebody to look over my shoulder on this one. I had my GM review it and whatnot, but I can't say that there was any cadence to it. It was just kind of like, you know. it will get paid when it gets paid. There was a lot of things that was in the 60-day and up bracket. Some of them, at some point, we even had to, I think within the second month, I ended up writing a lot of it off as bad debt. There was no way we are going to recover it. There was some stuff from 2019 that,
Oh, wow.
yeah, you dial the phone, it goes to voicemail. It's like, all right, it's game over here. So, yeah.
What I'm curious, tell us what it's like buying a business where there's a GM in place. What did that make your day-to-day look like?
Ah, um, it was it really makes it's a double-edged sword, right? I think, especially in my case, this was a general manager that, for the most part, the seller was removed from the business. He wasn't as involved, so he had been running things for a very long time, the way that he wanted to run it, that kind of thing. And at some point, I think he was even a potential buyer of the business. So it it kind of it became quickly kind of thing of like trying to make sure we're all aligned as far as a vision and a goal goes. And it's not, in my case, it wasn't very like easy to say the least. I will say this though, that my general manager he was open to he was genuinely open to getting on board. Uh, they may have been different ways of getting on board, how that should have been, but we all had the same end goal. It was just a matter of how to get to that end goal. Maybe may have looked different. I also know it's conventional wisdom to, when you buy a business, take your time, go in and observe for 6 months and then don't make any changes. I don't know about people, it doesn't work. I it doesn't work. It's hard to just see things and not say anything.
Just watch on the sidelines.
Yeah. Especially when, I don't know, maybe I'm also spoiled from coming from the corporate environment and maybe running a business or two. But I I wasn't just gonna wait until 6 months before I correct something. So I definitely came in with that intention. I just quickly realized I wasn't gonna do that.
So
So,
what were some of the things you quickly changed or implemented?
oh man, there's been so many things that okay. Uh, well, there's obviously the kind of receivables kind of process that we talked about. Another thing was also our draw schedule. We something we call the draw schedule, which is basically it's a process around how subcontractors, uh, when they when they do some work for us, they give us an invoice or a bill, and then we pay this whole process around how that gets to us and how it gets entered into our accounting software and whatnot. And one of the things that I changed up, I don't think it was immediately anyone's favorite, but everyone is now on board with it, was that cycle. It was on a weekly basis. And I was like, it takes us way too long to get paid
To pay
for
out every
to
week.
pay out every week. Um, you don't have to wait a month, but it has to be 2 weeks. So obviously that change was, first of all, it was uncomfortable for the subcontractors to begin with, but it was also uncomfortable for some of the internal folks, like our accounts payable. Just like, I don't want to receive calls every week asking where's my money, and I have to explain to them it's not here yet. It's not coming yet. And it's like, it's okay, let me take those calls. I'll, I'll be happy to, because we, cash flow was something that partly on me kind of not doing paying as much attention to the diligence and especially the working capital as I should have. But I, even if we had the right amount of money we needed to have in the bank account until we fixed that problem, it was still not going to be feasible in my eyes to pay out every week because there's a lot of work that's being produced consistently.
Yeah.
And then you pay it out this week, and then the next week you have to pay it out again. But it also happens to be the week that payroll is happening. And so, yeah, we're not going to do that, right? So we've got loans to pay. That was one of the changes I made sooner rather than later.
What about with the team? Did you keep everyone? What happened there?
The intention was to keep everyone, uh, uh, but that didn't turn out to be the case. Maybe the general manager, at some point I had to have a conversation with him, and ultimately things didn't work out, and uh, had to let him go. There
How
were
soon after you how soon after you closed did you let the GM go?
I think this was under a month. Well, definitely under 2 months. I'm not sure
Wow.
of the timeline. Maybe somewhere between 30 to 45 days, I would say.
How did you
Um,
feel when you had to let him go? Were you panicked inside? Did you have someone else in mind? Like, were you like, I'm gonna be the GM now?
no, a it wasn't an easy conversation, of course. Those things are never easy. A I think to a certain degree, he may have kind of seen it coming too. Because I mean, we were talking every day up until that point. All right. And we kind of knew what we were very aligned on and what we weren't aligned on, and whatnot. But I had as far as his immediate replacement, I think the estimator uh, at the business, he was the one that had to step in as our operations manager, is what it is. So he's now operations manager and estimator, and he he had been doing it for a while. He'd been in the industry for, I don't know, 42 years at this point. In previous roles, he had been general manager himself and whatnot. So from a replacement perspective, I didn't have that conversation with him before doing this. I was just hoping that I won't have to go search outside, and that he will take an internal promotion, which he gladly stepped up and did. So that made it easier than maybe it could have been. Um,
That's no, they're very lucky. Let's talk about how you've been able to grow the business. We haven't really touched on that, but that's something, super impressive. You're 8 months in, you've already been growing the business. Tell us about that. What have you been working on there? Um, tell us like how much you've been able to grow the business to date. And a lot of people, they see a J curve when they just buy, the business declines. For you, it's obviously been the opposite, but let's
yeah,
let's dive into that a little bit more.
yeah. I think I can only hope that it would have grown, which I'm glad it did, and because when you have to make maybe some sudden changes like that, the only way it gets justified and the folks at the company kind of build confidence in you is that we see things go in the positive direction, and we've tried to be we're very transparent on a weekly basis. We actually just switched it to monthly, where we do all hands. We just kind of open up the books and everybody sees what's going on from a cash flow perspective and the revenue and all that kind of things. And uh, I don't know, I saw a lot of transparency in Silicon Valley, and I know how it empowered me, and I felt like I could basically definitely bring that model here. But yeah, from a growth perspective, so at the end of last year, I think their margins were gross margins were, I think, just a little shy of 30%, or it's more like 29% if you do this matching principle thing I was talking about, somewhere between 28 to 29, how depend on how you want to do it. And cutting cost was we had to introduce some type of efficiencies around like the budget we set for jobs and how we make sure we stay within those budgets. And also even for the project managers, set some incentives around it, right? Set some KPIs and around their margins and customer satisfaction, and maybe compensate them for that in some sort of bonuses. And that has really helped folks really pay attention to their material costs. Now, sometimes we see uh, jobs maybe even take a little longer because they were negotiating material costs. I'm like, I'm all about the margins, but I also don't want things to take longer, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, ultimately we kind of built a culture around like just really paying attention to your budget and staying within those budgets. And that has obviously inherently increased their direct margins on jobs, therefore increasing the margin on. Now we are, I think year to date, somewhere around 34, 35% in gross
Wow.
profit margins. And the really healthy uh, businesses within this franchise network, they're doing anywhere between 42 to 45, sometimes 46% in gross profit margins. Uh, and that is the blended margin because you have water mitigation, reconstruction, you know, mold, what have you. And water mitigation is the highest margin business. Is if you're doing a really good job, you're doing at least 70% margin. Construction is you get big ticket jobs, but the margins aren't as great. You're doing, sometimes anywhere between 35 to 45 if you're doing a good job. And we also do what we call the service we provide is called contents, where if we go into a home that is, let's say, that needs to be restored from, let's say, fire or water or whatever, and the contents within that home, let's say it's furniture, what have you, is ruined, we can bring it to our warehouse, clean it, restore it, and then store it in our warehouse, all for a fee. And then when we're done putting the home back together, we move it back in. And the margins on contents is also pretty high. So having to kind of across the board really pay attention to the cost, what it costs us to produce those kind of work, uh, has really helped improve our margin. It's one of the ways we've grown the business, or really the easiest lever we had to pull. Uh, it was just bringing some process and accountability around budgets for jobs.
No, that's great and very impressive. I'm curious also, have you've expanded margins. Have you been, driving more revenue as well? Driving, more growth to top line? What has that been like? Have you focused there at all in the past couple of months?
Yeah. There's been some experiments we've done there. Some have worked out and we've stuck with it. Some didn't work out in the way that so. And one really easy lever, another really easy lever too was online marketing. The I partnered with this marketing agency that helped us with our Google business page and our LSA and our SEOs and whatnot. And we recently had a storm in this county, a city here called Stevens City, and the city the city infrastructure is not very great. It could be better, let me put it that way. When there's a storm or rain, heavy rain, the drainage system in the city just kind of gets clogged up and it all backs up into people's basement and whatnot. And we're getting so many calls from that place. I remember my mitigation manager complaining to our operations manager, hey, can we turn that Google thing off? We're getting way too many calls and whatnot. And that's something that under normal circumstances wouldn't have happened. I think earlier in the year, before we number of those calls, and it was much later in maybe I think March or early April when we kind of got uh, the digital marketing agency evolved that decided to get some, and that has really helped grow our top line. I think right now we are trending uh, maybe 5% over the revenue last year. Uh, Another thing we did try to was diving into commercial. Uh, just we do some commercial work, but I was trying to knock harder on that, and to a certain degree, it started to kind of results or work out. I know James Madison University is a large university in our area, and
You actually personally walked in, no?
yeah,
Knocked on their door.
I was there just, I was like, get me on your vendor list. What would it take? And I got what I wanted. And they had a fire at one of their dorm rooms, unfortunately, and they called us and we got the job and we signed it. But it was a pretty decent sized job and we got paid for it and everything. But I also very quickly realized I don't think my operation is well set up for commercial, right? So while there's some lever to pull there and kind of grow our top line from that regard, there's some investments that needs to be made to, the way I talked about how documentation is how you get paid. The standard as far as documentation goes is significantly different when you're dealing with commercial clients. You're having to write summaries, executive summaries every day. I mean, you're having to write these documents with executive summaries and all these sections every day. When I say every day, it's like every 24 hours, right? With to them. And first of all, we don't know what those reports are supposed to look like, and we do not have people to write those. I'm a chat GPT guy. I'll definitely give anything to AI for it to write for me, but you also have to have all the context there is to give it and prepare it and package together. And we just didn't have quite a process around that. Ultimately, we did a pretty good job for them and satisfied them and whatnot, but it's possible that we left some money on the table uh, because because of our, I guess, as not being really well set up for it. And it probably won't be this year because there are so many other initiatives we are focusing on, but uh, there are some things we're working out in the background, and kind of hoping that that will really help us or set us up to start doing more and more commercial work, and we'll be back on the road sometime next year, knocking on more doors, more commercial doors.
Love that. I mean, it's great that you've already been able to see so much, growth in such a short period of time. One thing we didn't touch on, by the way, is, a lot of people when buying a business, they're like, should I buy an existing franchise? Should I avoid franchises? What has your experience been there? Has it been helpful to be a part of a larger franchise that's maybe a little bit more well known? Tell us about your experience there.
Yeah, yeah. When you say a lot of people, I was a lot of people. I was, I was just like that. I was like, I'm not getting a franchise. Why would I do that? I want full autonomy, whatnot. And I think just like everything else, there are pros and cons for sure. But I think the biggest thing would really be the franchise or the network you're getting into. I can't say that I diligence this franchise the way that typically should be done, but I also got really lucky in getting a franchise that just worked out for me. I think Paul Davis has what they call, I don't know if I'm allowed to share this or not, but it's almost like a democratic system where the franchisor is not telling folks what to do. There are these like these districts within the network that for anything to happen, anything to change, there's almost like a thing that comes up and you have to vote on it, and the owners are the ones that vote on it, and it's almost like the White House or Congress, right? You kind of get law some lobbying for it and all that kind of stuff, and people
That's
make their
funny.
case and whatnot, and then and that's how changes happen. So ultimately, you're still kind of in control of how your business kind of works out and shapes out. Obviously, normal things like brand standards, marketing campaigns, so those things are table stakes within franchises. And I also think Paul Davis specifically, and I know this to be true for a lot of the big name franchises, and maybe what has made all of them successful is there's a lot of like really well documented processes that like SOPs that are just there to be given to you for you to follow, and you spend your time on other things that will grow your business instead, because these are well proven processes that just work. And that we take that for granted sometimes, because especially for me, coming from the tech industry, not knowing anything about restoration and losing my general manager in 45 days or 30 days, whatever it was, uh, you kind of have to you kind of wish that there's a framework that business continuity can just keep going. And a lot of I think being part of a franchise really helped in that regard. uh I think it would have been tough otherwise if this was just me, and well, I don't know, well, maybe I'll have to go figure out a business consultant to help me with that. And that would be more money than maybe a royalty fee would be. So there are pros and cons. For me, in the case, and Paul Davis specifically, yeah, I think it just worked out well for me.
I'm curious now that you've been through this process, if you're exploring another franchise, a completely different one, what would you dig into? Like, what questions would you ask?
Yeah. I think I don't think that I would necessarily do my diligence by going to the franchisor. You'd always hear what you want to hear from them. All right. It's a marketing and sales thing at the end of the day. Uh, I would really go to the owners in the network. Uh, and I wouldn't go to ones that the franchisor asked me to go to. I'll go to the ones they do not ask me to go to. And then I'll also search online, uh, previous or past owners within that network. Uh, and I'll really just try to get a sense of their business operations, what kind of support they get from the franchise. Do they feel supported by them or not? Do they think, uh, you know, they get they get value out of being in that franchise, as far as helping their business grow and meet their goals, whether it's the value they bring to whoever they are serving, or the monetary kind of aspect to it. I think I really dig into that from the perspective of the owners themselves. But I think, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go to the franchisor themselves. It's just a big marketing and sales campaign at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's like conducting reference checks, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I would do, but at a very high level.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to be sensitive of time, but one thing we really haven't touched on is you've already been seeking out additional acquisitions. You're only 8 months into this first deal, but you're already looking for more. Tell us about that. Tell us, where you're at with these other deals, and give us a little bit more color on that.
Yeah. Again, I've been pretty lucky to have a pretty amazing team, and ones that have been very open to change and growth, and it's really helping and showing in the culture and the numbers of the business. And once you taste that Kool-Aid, you just want to have more. Uh, there's an opportunity to kind of explore, another within the same network franchise. And I think having it's still pretty early in the process, having conversations with the seller, kind of got to a point where we feel pretty good about what it'll look like. We're under LOI, doing diligence,
Round two. So I love it.
trying to secure funds as well. And yeah, I think it would really you know, it really ties into, I'll say, what has now, I'll say, is more like a long-term goal or an exit plan. I think part of the beauty with franchise is you get to do roll-ups. There's the opportunity to do roll-ups and then kind of merge operations and kind of leverage, maybe the strength of two offices. The opportunity of two offices is being taken care of with the strength of just one, for example. So all those things are kind of, it's really kind of attractive in the franchise world, and I think from a growth perspective too. When I think I had mentioned a little while ago that we're working in the background to kind of really get ourselves set up for commercial. Part of that is this, acquisition that I'm looking at. They are really well set up to do that kind of stuff anyway. In a world where the deal goes through and we're able to merge operations, I think it will really spearhead our top line, and because there'll be more commercial opportunities available because we already have the operation set up for it.
No, that's super impressive, the progress you've already made. I'm curious, have you been getting support from the franchisor and your lender? What's that been like?
Yeah, yeah, definitely tons of support. We one every franchisee has what we call an original business coach or a business coach, and you kind of some meet on a weekly basis and a bi-weekly. It's up to them on how the kind of time and cadence they want to set, but you want to set some time with them. I personally meet with my consultant or coach on a weekly basis, and it's been really helpful and kind of I think it has really accelerated my knowledge in this industry for sure. Uh, and also just things that other people have done that didn't work out for them that I may have been on the path of doing, and it's like just step back. We've been there before. We've seen it before.
And
It's
had they been supportive of of you pursuing an additional acquisition so quickly?
yeah. There's the it's a pretty interesting story. I think the initial on the onset of it, it was kind of like, oh, you just got here. We don't know. Prove yourself, that kind of thing. Because I mean, it's in their
Fair, which
interest.
is fair.
Yeah, very fair. It's in their interest to make sure their franchisees are set up for success, and a lot of that comes from how you're already doing. I think it helps that we've seen some growth and some significant changes in our franchise as well. But I think in talking to them, we essentially they are on board to make it happen. There's a process around it. There's a checklist of things that you want to make sure in your office you're doing and doing well before they let you go. For the most part, we're checking those boxes. So we're working toward, again, like I said, it was very early in the process. We're working towards an approval, but all signs show that we'll probably get that approval.
That's great. And you financed the first deal with an SBA 7A loan. How are you thinking about financing this next one? Are you kind of maxed out, or do you still have some room there?
There is some room there, although I want to stay away from getting into the SB as much as I can. I probably will end up there. We'll see. But I I think I've spent. Yeah, this wasn't a brokered deal or anything like that. It wasn't on the market. I did spend a like quite some time with the seller. Matter of fact, I'm meeting him next week. And just in talking to him, kind of getting the sense of just even teasing a sale out of him, right? Uh, eh, we kind of got to a spot where we felt like we could make something, we could put together a structure that will work out uh, for us. And a large majority of this deal is a seller note. I think maybe 2/3 of it is a seller note,
Wow.
and 1/3 of it that'll be me having to come up with that. And uh, there's probably going to be uh, leverage here that I'll have to tap into. I'm not entirely sure how much of that I want to do. Is still, I think some of that will also come out of the diligence report, especially the Q of E report, will kind of educate a lot of that, whether a significant amount of that is coming out of pocket, or if I want to bring folks on board, like investors on board, or if I just want to go all out with the SBA, we'll see. But to a certain degree, it's gonna. I don't think I've really concluded on what will make sense yet. But these are conversations I'm actively having in the background for sure.
That's great. I mean, it's very uncommon to get a majority seller finance deal your first time around. Have you found that it's easier once you're already in the game, basically,
Yeah,
to negotiate that?
yeah, 100%. I mean, when you've been through the ring once, it kind of there are conversations I'm having now that I'm like, man, I wonder how different things would be if the first time around I had all this knowledge and could just, you know, kind of touch on those points when I was negotiating. But yeah, I think it really helps when you've been through it once. And obviously, in being in a community and being surrounded by like-minded people, it that can also really accelerates your knowledge in just this whole process, which what is it, ETAs? Yeah, I'll say that's what I'll call it. Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm very impressed with the speed you're moving. So I'm excited to see where you land end of the year. But
Yeah.
Kofi, I we've already gone way over time. So thanks for being super generous with your time on this Friday afternoon. I guess final question for you would just be, how does it feel to finally, be a business owner again? And this time, not a startup, but an established business. Was this kind of what you expected going into acquisitions? And we didn't really touch on sort of your work-life balance, but you also just had a newborn, right? So how are you juggling all of this, and how's that been?
Oh man, it's been very fulfilling. Is it what I expected? Not every bit of it. Not every bit of it, that's for sure. Uh, there's a lot of things that keep you up at night, and all of us, it also almost feels like you just went from just chilling in your basement, hacking on code and me playing video games, and all of a sudden you're responsible for making sure people get paid and all that kind of stuff. It's just a different level of like uh I'll say uh, I don't want to say stress. Stress is not a word. I don't consider myself stressed, but it's just a whole different ball game. And that change also happened so quickly. So but I will say is I've had the privilege of being able to quit my job and do this full time and still be able to support myself and my family and maintain our standard of living. This, for the most part, has replaced my salary and some more from my previous industry. So I think that part of it makes it fulfilling, and it, not only that, it comes with autonomy and being able to make decisions and just go as wild as you want and that kind of stuff. It was all I wanted in entrepreneurship. And to that degree, yes. But I think what it takes to be able to do that every day uh, wasn't what I expected. That part is hard. It's very, very hard. Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom, I guess, the folks that are maybe a year or two behind you right now, watching this, thinking of making their first acquisition?
Oh man. Uh, it I you've just got to keep going. There isn't. I think something that I didn't talk about a lot is the cycles I went through with this, which there were days where I was so sure I'm doing this, and there were days that what am I doing? Like, what is this? You know, you get off a call with the seller and you just feel so dumb. Like, I didn't even ask, what am I doing? You know? And it was very, very easy to just call it quits then. I mean, I could just get back into tech, and tech is a very lucrative career, you know. There are a lot of folks that would think you're crazy for leaving tech to kind of do this, and they will be right. But I think you've just got to keep going. At some point, you'll get where you want to be, no matter what it takes. That makes it. It was something that I had the privilege of people encouraging me and letting me know when I was going through these hoops myself. And I feel like I can only pay it forward by giving that same advice.
No, thank you. That's fantastic advice, and I think people don't talk about it enough. There's a lot of people out there talking about how easy it is to buy business, and that's not even anywhere close to the
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
It takes a
I mean,
ton of
even the
perseverance.
even the negotiations, before you talk to whoever the other party is, you kind of have set in mind what your plan is, what a good deal will look like for you, and there's they will come up with a whole totally different thing, and you kind of have to go back to them to try and adjust it, and the anxiety and the nervousness that comes with that sometimes in itself is enough for you to just be like, we also don't have to do this and just call it quits, you know. So it really is. I don't think it's talked about enough, and it probably will never be talked about enough. You only know it when you experience it.
Yeah, it's definitely an emotionally charged, process. So,
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. And no, I mean that's great insight. And Kofi, I'm super excited for you. Thank you for continuing to, contribute to the community, for coming on the panel recently. It was great to meet you in person finally as well. And
yeah,
super excited for the year and the years ahead for you. I'm eager to see where things go. We'll have to check back in a couple months from now and do this again.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm very thankful for inviting me to the podcast. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of it. I probably have seen, I don't know so much about recently because this thing can sometimes make you busier than you want to be. But I know for sure there were times that I used to binge watch it all the time. And I'm glad to be able to kind of contribute to it in from that regard. Also, of course, very thankful for your community. I think it probably I probably wouldn't be here if I didn't join, because I still would be having ChatGPT try to do LOIs for me. And I don't know.
In touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen.